So let's start from the SERENA approach, the SERENA philosophy adopted in this project, which is based on 3 pillars. On the left, the first pillar is represented by the soil threats. And on the right, you can see the second pillar represented by soil ecosystem services. And these are 2 different pillars, of course, but they are not independent. They are strictly linked and connected, at least for most of the items. And we can consider these pillars like the 2 sides of the same coin, let's say. And this is the approach used in SERENA. And actually, very complex work is ongoing dealing with the threats and the soil ecosystem service bundles. And all this work is connected with the third pillar, which is represented by stakeholders, which are the core part of the project. So starting from this, let's move to the first results, which have been obtained after an internal survey with a questionnaire about the relevance of soil ecosystem services and threats. So with the green color, the green boxes represent the different ecosystem services, and in orange you can see the soil threats, and the length of each box is proportional to the relevance, to the importance that have been attributed by each member state of the SERENA consortium. Here in the bottom, you can see the different letters, A, B, C, representing the ranking of this relevance. So A means very important, B important, and C less important. Okay, as you can see, also indicated by the blue arrows, some of these items got a similar evaluation. So the linked items are also being evaluated in the same way. But in some cases, like for the salinization, as mentioned before by Isabel, the result was a little bit surprising, because it seems like no member state considers salinization as an important item. And also disease and pest control among ecosystem services has received a very low evaluation compared to the relevance of this item. And these data are indeed complex to be interpreted. But it's important to mention that when the question was posed, so if what is relevant for you, this has been interpreted in a different way by each member state. So some of them consider relevant an important item in general terms. Other member states consider relevant as feasible. So this may explain why sometimes there were different or unexpected results from the survey. But if we give a look to the soil threats, we can see here on the left the results coming up from the literature survey done by SERENA partners, where soil erosion is clearly the main threat studied at the European scale. And when we compare these results with the priorities obtained by the survey, we can see that, okay, soil erosion is considered very important, like soil organic carbon loss or soil compaction. But if you look at this scheme on the right, you can see that, for example, soil erosion is considered highly important only by some of the member states, more specifically from the south of Europe, and the other threats are considered in the north. So this heterogeneity indicates that each member state has a different feeling, a different sensitivity to what soil threat means for them. Similar results, but different, were obtained for ecosystem services, where from literature data we could show that soil erosion is still, together with the soil erosion control and biomass production and greenhouse gases climate regulations, are the main ecosystem services studied at the European level, whereas according to the results obtained in SERENA, in this case, GHG, greenhouse gas climate regulations, are in accordance with that result and are have been indicated as highly important by all the member states that participated to this survey. So just to say that this evaluation is not that easy, and that the local national conditions and sensitivity may affect the results of this survey. So based on this first step and experience, this strategy has been proposed for the choice of proper indicators. So a group of criteria were proposed here on the left. So the indicators should be scientific sound, of course. Also, data availability and the ability to convey information are considered like relevant criteria, and each of them is characterized by several characteristics that may be used for make an example, like this one on the right that we made for the soil erosion, where 8 different indicators were selected and evaluated according to this criteria. And as you can see, it's easy to get a very easy to read figure that could be used by policymakers, stakeholders, or whoever to easily evaluate the best indicator for the specific purpose of the case. And this work is still ongoing. It's not that easy, as I said, and is being carried out together with stakeholders, where they will play a main role in this. A different, let's say, not problem, but this a different approach has been used for biological indicators in MINOTAUR project, because as Antonio said in the previous presentation, there's a lack of application of biological indicators across Europe. This is not due to the lack of indicators per se, because there's plenty of indicators available in literature and among labs and countries, but there's a different and heterogeneous application of these methods for different reasons. And this is a table where the main most commonly used biological indicators have been applied across the 24 EJP SOIL member states. I highlighted in green the most ranked, the highly ranked ones. And but if we take into consideration, for example, soil respiration, the main one, you can see here that it has been implemented just in 7 countries out of 24, so not that much. And if we look at the reference, threshold, and target values for each indicator, most of the countries don't even have defined any or some of them. So when we are asked to select for sound and reliable indicators, where should we start from? If we consider also that most of the member states never did any national scale monitoring initiatives, so they should start from zero. So, okay, we use these indications like a starting point, of course, while we also add some different philosophical approach, let's say. So we should consider that soil has about 1/4 of the entire biodiversity of the planet, and that its organisms are maybe classified into 3 main groups. The first one is represented by chemical engineers, which are essentially microorganisms, the smallest organisms in the soil. They play a key role in the decomposition and mineralization of organic matter, transform residues into nutrients, and play a very important role also in bioremediation. But it's also equally important, the role of biological regulators. The second group that is represented by microfauna, mesofauna organisms that has a very, very crucial role in the regulation of the chemical engineers in terms of composition, in terms of function and dynamics throughout grazing, predation, or parasitism. So we have to take them into account for sure. The third and last group is represented by ecosystem engineers, which spend their lives into the soil, modifying its matrix, its structure, and creating spaces for its functions and its living part of the soil, let's say. So altogether, these groups contribute to the maintenance and the provision of and the functioning of soil processes. So they interaction and link together guarantee this support to soil processes that consequently guarantee the functioning and the services of the soil system. So this is extremely relevant for us. So when we discuss internally to how to propose a selection, let's say, or criteria to select indicators, we decided to propose a two-tiered system approach, including both functional indicators and structural indicators. So we started from the previous experience made by other European scale-up initiatives, by the data available in literature, because I remind you that MINOTAUR project like SERENA are still running, so we don't have final results or output. So we base our considerations and discussions on what is already available in literature. And we selected indicators that are cost effective and that for which standard methods may be available. They are scientifically sound, of course, and already applied in national scale monitoring surveys. So this is the first proposal we did of a minimum set of prioritized indicators that are sensitive to the main soil degradation processes. Of course, these are not enough. This is just a first priority, but a second group might be included, including a number of different additional indicators that may be used for specific case, for local needs, or for different purposes. So this is, we know that there are a number of different protocols or methods and indicators. So we are aware. But so in this second group, we think that maybe this second group may be more flexible, and the discussion is still open, of course. But this is the direction we took. Another important concept we took into account, and I like to highlight, is that the minimum set of indicators should be applied altogether. So we recommend to avoid the choice of single indicators, of just proxy indicators that may be sometimes a little bit misleading, because usually, for example, the solid organic carbon content indicate it's related to high biodiversity level, which is usually considered a good proxy for soil health. But that is not always true. So there are so many different cases that can be found across soils, depending on the pedoclimatic conditions, on soil type, land use, and so on. And so we recommend an holistic base integration of the biological set of indicators with other indicators, chemical, physical, and so on, in order to get a valuable indication about soil health. Okay, so in order to better explain this point, I usually make this simple example to the students, just to make them better understand that soil, it's a complex matrix, and I like it to compare it with a big city. And if you aim to measure its health status, just measuring the CO2 emissions, oh, okay, it's interesting and indicative for an overall indication of what's going on over there. There's sort of light, but it says nothing about health, because of course we need to get more information regarding who, for example, is providing that amount of CO2 and which substrates are used and so on. So we need, for example, to quantify the microbial biomass, the amount of living organisms that are responsible for the production of such amount of CO2. So the same for the city. We need to consider the amount of citizens, of cars, and etc. that are responsible of CO2 emissions to have an idea of the quality, let's say, of the meaning of the CO2 emissions. But of course, this is not enough, because the same amount of biomass of citizens may be allocated to different roles, can be doing different activities, sleeping, eating, running, etc. So the different contribution to the CO2 emission should be evaluated more specifically, in order also to have some inputs regarding the specific substrates involved in the CO2 emission. So in order to highlight who is doing what, and to get some insight into the functional indicators. But again, this is not enough, because this is good, but we need to understand the specific role of the different actors, because each person has different skills, different potential functions in the society. So the same in the soil. And as I mentioned before, these categories interact with each other, and they, in order to work in their best potential condition, they need to have proper infrastructure. So for the soil, physical, chemical properties, and in the city we need infrastructure, streets, transports, and so on. So this is the example I always like to do, to show you the complexity of biological indicators, but also to explain you the starting point of the criteria we adopted within our project. So in conclusion, just let me say a few words about what's going on in the next future. So of course, we are going to review and select possible indicators to assess soil threats and ecosystem services. And the selection of indicators and the definition will be reviewed by the stakeholders in the case of SERENA. And in case of MINOTAUR, specific targets, thresholds, values will be discussed, and we'll try to develop and propose solutions according to the criteria that were presented by Antonio in the first presentation. And we are also going to test different approaches on national data sets and European level, like the Lucas initiative. And we will check the effect of using national or Lucas data and to figure out if there are significant differences, which kind of approach should be adopted at different scale, etc. And last but not least, we'd like also to develop national and European scale maps and models for each, or at least the main threats we consider in these projects, and the related soil ecosystem services. That's all. So thank you for attention. Of course, I'm available for any question. So thanks.